All right, guys, we're back with another podcast. We took kind of an extended hiatus, so apologize to the few loyal listeners that we do have. Today, we're going to talk about the initial thoughts on the recently announced Flash TV series slash cameo and Arrow. And I got Spawn and Don John with me here. You guys go ahead and say hi.
On.
All right, so I'll start off. My initial stance is I think this is a bad idea for multiple reasons. And I kind of want to do like a pros and cons thing here, but why don't you guys go ahead and say how you feel about it?
Spawn, go ahead.
Well, basically, in my opinion, this is a great idea for Warner Brothers, being that it's not that it's a formula that's underdeveloped. I think that this is actually a formula that they think works for a character like Flash, who's not Superman or Batman, and can still work for them in a medium that they have been doing before that's a success, like Green Arrow. Now, Arrow as a TV show is great. I personally consider it on par with a lot of good TV shows, but that's just me as a comic fan, even though I haven't finished the whole season yet. However, I just still think that being that this is Flash, I think that this is a good idea and that this proves that Warner Brothers want something to do with the character, being that if we go by this, he'd get 4 appearances, which would be the cameos in Arrow, his own TV show, his movie perhaps, and then perhaps Justice League. So that's just 4 things right there in a live action medium.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree that I think there are a couple pros to this idea. One, that we've heard that he's going to get an actual costume, and I think they said something about it being very similar to his classic costume. It's not going to be some dumb red hood kind of deal.
It's not going to be red blur like Smallville.
Yeah, Jesus. Plus, wasn't that like a Little Bow Wow, by the way, or something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah. Another pro is it'll be Barry Allen. It won't be Wally West. I like Barry Allen.
Well, that depends really because.
Well, no, they announced it. They said it'll be Barry Allen.
No. I'm talking for later down the road because at the original idea. Now this is just back when they were developing his movie. Wally was going to be the Flash, and then Bear would come back for the supposed Justice League Mortal film.
Oh, well, I'm assuming that idea's been scrapped.
I guess, but still,
yeah. And then the other pro is that they're keeping it close to the source material. That he's going to be a forensic scientist in is it Central City?
Yeah, Central City.
So those are the only 3 good things I can really think to come out of it. The rest I think is just all negative. And I mean, we can let's go to John first.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and agree with Spawn. Thinking about it, the whole main thing is everybody's really rushing to get these DC characters out, or everybody wants to see them because of course Marvel is now their whole thing, their whole shtick now is without having their A-list or their former A-list properties like Spider-Man or the X-Men, they decided to take their B-listers, and some C-listers, and their lesser characters. I wouldn't rate them by that because they're all great characters, but give them more more spotlight. And I mean, I think that with DC or with Warner Brothers, that's just a formula, like you were saying, that they're just not used to. When you take a look at Batman and Superman, who clearly they are the 2 most popular characters in the DC universe.
But again, I think that's because DC hasn't really had the guts to pony up any dough for any of the other lesser-known characters, other than Green Lantern. I mean, we'll omit that one, but Marvel took a chance, and DC just doesn't seem willing to do that.
I think that, and I mean that is one thing. That is definitely one thing to keep in account and keep in your head. But I mean, I was gonna put an example. Batman and Superman. The reason that they've gotten the reason their popularity is because they've gotten a lot of adaptations. They've changed and they've gone through the other medium of just comic books to where they're now. I mean, they're not even hardly known as comic books. I mean, they're just they're pop culture icons. Everybody knows who Batman and Superman is. I mean, my mom knows how Batman became Batman and how Superman became Superman. So I mean, if my mom knows, then they're pretty popular. But I mean
that's partially due to them being 2 of the oldest superheroes around.
Exactly. And I mean, I think one thing is, when you take in account Batman and Superman, they've had numerous, animated adaptations. They've had numerous. I mean, Superman and Batman even went as far as to being on the radio first, on radio serials, and they've had cartoons and everything. And then let's say, like you brought up Green Lantern. Green Lantern, as far as I know, and I mean, I'm not huge. I know a pretty good amount of comic book, television or film media, but I mean, Green Lantern's only been adapted animation-wise before the film came out 2 times, in like general audience media. He was in the Super Friends in the '70s cartoon, and then he was in the Justice League, cartoon in the.
But that was Jon Stewart,
Yeah, that was Jon Stewart.
That was another one, but I mean, even then, he was not given his own animated show. He was not given, there were no trials for this. They just risked it, and went out with a movie, and unfortunately,
it was a lackluster film at best.
Yeah.
One being the quality of the film, but like, I mean, I dare say it's like, I don't think that the public was really ready because it was just an unknown hero. And I mean, the thing also, of course, is the quality of the film was bad.
Yeah. If the quality of the film had been good, then they would have had an Iron Man success with it. You know what I mean? Iron Man was just as unknown, if not more.
Exactly. And I mean, to me, that's just the risk you take. And I mean, whether they think the risk was worth it. Now, I mean, I guess like that's what the difference is DC, I mean, I wouldn't say that they don't have guts, but I just say they're like, especially after the lesson they learned with Green Lantern, what they're doing with the Flash is like, all right, we got to get this guy more known to the public. People know the whole, the lightning symbol with the red shirt. They know that he's the fastest guy, but they're like, who really? It's like the same thing that they knew about Green Lantern. Like, all people saw was the Green Lantern logo, and it's like, oh, he's the guy with the ring. But really, it's like, who is this? Who is the Flash? What does he do besides just run fast? What are other things he can do besides just, be fast? What's more to his character? And I think,
that's a great lead into, in my opinion, adapted to a film. A TV show's not going to do it enough justice.
I think I'm thinking that if it does, and I don't think it's going to even work well. And I mean, here's another thing that I think people need to hold into effect when talking about creating these, television, or I want to just say live action universes. Marvel's got the live action universe because now they've also made the crossover to TV with the Shield show that's going to be coming out this fall. And they're making it known that this exists within the universe of the Marvel, the Marvel movies, the Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Captain America, and all that, the Avengers. So I'm thinking, people, I think once a statement is made, people really latch onto that statement, and I mean, a lot of people, overreact, or they'll have a different opinion. But I mean, take a look at last year, man. Last year, the creators of Arrow made it real evident that Arrow was a non-superpower universe.
No metahumans.
Yeah, that there were no metahumans. That this is a real, he's just going to be busting up drug lords and busting up real people. Anybody who has powers, when they get thrown in their universe, it's nothing. But now you're actually hearing, I mean, fans demand it, and I think that when you get enough fans demand it, and then when you have something that you, I guess, really feel strong about, now they're changing their mind. So, I mean, I'm still not, I guess what the word is like, I'm still hopeful that, I like the show Arrow. I mean, I know some people don't. I know some people call it like a Smallville kind of thing, but I dig it. And I think now with putting in metahumans and making that universe, exist, it is letting, even some of the Marvel fans know, it's like, we're going with this metahuman stuff, and if this Flash and if this, Arrow really do work and they get up to that popularity, why not mix them in with this new World's Finest universe? Like, why not say, hey, yeah, it exists, put our B and C listers on the TV real quick, make them a little more known. And, I mean, with there you have two options, either you can adapt that show into a film, I mean, because that's been done before, I mean, there's been a Sex and the City movie, and I mean, I know that's a bad example, but I mean, there's such a thing as TV shows that cross over to a movie. Or you could just, say, hey, the Green Arrow and Flash, they don't exist in our universe, but due to the popularity and the overall demand, we're going to make a version that ties within that universe or something.
That actually brings me to my first problem with this idea, John. It's that, okay, you have this show Arrow, right, which is where Flash is supposed to make his initial appearance before his spinoff. And in this show, the rules of the universe have been established that there are no metahumans, there are no superpowers. It's a guy with a bow and arrow with, somewhat superhuman ability with marksmanship, things like that. But I mean, he doesn't have superpowers, and so when you establish a world that has these set rules that the universe must abide by, you have to follow that. And if you're gonna bring in the Flash, who has superpowers, I mean, you can't just say, oh, he's super fast. This guy could just beat the best Kenyan in a 400-meter dash. You're breaking your own rules that you've set for yourself. And if any other movie did that, any other TV show did that, I mean, it would get canned pretty fucking quick. And so my problem is, it's just one of the fundamental rules of writing movies and TV shows that when you establish your universe, everything must be contained inside. And when you go outside of it, you're breaking your own rules. And I think if they do that, they're going to have to come up with some bullshit reason as to why the Flash can now show up. I mean, they're going to have this bullshit explanation that is honestly just going to be lazy writing in order to introduce a new character.
Well, I can see where people can think that, and I mean, I can definitely understand, like, that's something, people that they might not want to break their own rules, but I definitely think, like, having seen the show Arrow, just because the creators of the show have said, yeah, we're not putting in metahumans, or, like, we agreed to not put in metahumans, it's never been actually put in the storyline that, that they live in a world with no
metahumans. It's just been said. It's been said by the creators of the show that they wouldn't introduce them. Now they kind of found out that rule with Count Vertigo, however, being that he had powers in the comics and in the TV shows that he was in, like Young Justice. However, he just was reduced to a certain drug dealer in the show.
Yeah, he was reduced to a drug pusher. Now, I mean, it's so that's the thing. Is like it's like, yeah, what you're saying is that they do seem like they're breaking their own rules, but at the same time, with them not, verbatim or like actually saying like, hey, this is a world where no superpowers exist, they it's kind of like they didn't even write the rule in the beginning. It was like an unspoken rule almost. So like it's like a possibility, like, yeah, but we never never was said that there weren't any people like that existed. So that's why, I mean, in my opinion, I think, if you are going to bring in a metahuman, I mean, just go with one of the more popular ones who actually has a crazy superpower.
Yeah, like the Flash.
Flash. Because I would rather, and like the thing is, like, if they were going to introduce, the superpowered villains or the superpowered, people or metahumans, I would rather them do it with, someone who I thought was more popular rather than, like a really, really lower list villain. Know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. It's just, again, my problem is that you want to adapt this character with these superpowers into a TV show. I mean, there's a reason that DC went with the Green Arrow as an adaptation for a TV show. It's because on a TV show's budget that's meant for primetime television, you don't have the resources to show off superpowers. Green Arrow is a man, like I said earlier, with excellent marksmanship, but that comes with just honing your skills, or a God-given talent. But I mean, it's not something that absolutely no one else in the world can do. Flash, other than Reverse Flash or Zoom, whatever the hell his name is.
Zoom. I think Mirror Master edges on that, being his origin was very secret agent wise. Like, he got the mirrors from a government project.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, like, Flash is like the only really fast person with the speed force.
I agree with you there. I'm just saying, like, certain characters that he has edge on that type of thing. Like I said before,
right,
Mirror Master.
A TV show doesn't have the budget to show those kinds of things, to do Flash justice. I mean, how in the world are they going to show him running super fast? Vibrating his molecules so fast that he can actually go almost intangible or go through walls or something like that. It's something that I feel like can't be done on a TV budget, which brings me back to the Arrow. That's the reason they did Arrow. I mean, it's really not hard. You can do it all with pretty much practical effects. It's a guy shooting a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
They're not doing a Green Lantern TV show because they don't have the budget for something like that. They're not doing Martian Manhunter because they don't have the budget for something like that. Flash, I think, falls into that category. You just don't have the resources to make Flash a good enough character to then transcend into the film genre. I just don't think they can do it. And for me, it feels like Warner Brothers is pussyfooting around, and instead of just diving in the deep end, they're dipping their pinky toe in the shallow end and testing the waters with the audience. And I just think that's a bad route to go. I think you're just setting yourself up for failure, shooting yourself in the foot there. Because, okay, so the Flash, they said that they're trying to cast this actor, right? And then, so they're trying to cast the Flash right now in 2013 when they're talking about a 2016 release for the film, which is, I know, still rumored, but I mean, they're talking about it being a strong possibility 2016 Flash movie, and they're talking that they would really like it to be the same actor. Well, you're trying to cast an actor for a film 3 years before the movie airs. That's before a director's online, before a writer's online, before a production team comes up. I mean, you're putting yourself in a bad situation there, because when an actor is attached to a property before a writer or a director or a production team, you're really putting them in a bind, because whether they know it or not, they have to write that character. They have to write that actor in. They don't get free reign. So I think if you're going to cast the same person as Flash from the TV show to the film, you're really restricting your options.
I mean, that is a good point. You do hold a good point. I mean, it does have, I don't know, I guess just with me thinking about it, everything, it has the potential to go wrong. And if it does go wrong, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know, I just see it as one of those, they're just going to go back to the drawing board kind of thing. But I mean, I would, it's a tough call, man. It really is. I mean, the one thing that I can just say is I'm excited for, I'm excited for a live action, altogether. Yeah, a live action Flash. And I just think, like, no one really can predict success, And that's the thing, is like,
lightning only strikes once. I mean, I understand that.
Yeah, it does. And I think one thing is that, especially with this kind of, I want to say business, is in this business, when you give one risk, and you succeed, it just opens a million doors. And I mean, it's just going to be on the risk of whether this thing is going to work or not. And I mean, I think it's even better that, people, and I don't want to say that you are, I'm just saying, like, some of, other fanboys or anything like that really, like, show, maybe just not a lot of hope for it, and it is the, let's say this is a surprise hit, because, I mean,
it has the potential. I mean, like, for all the powers that he has, Barry Allen is very human in his very, like, personal life. Like, come on, he's a forensic investigator. Like, that's something without having to show his powers off the base you can do in a TV show without, like, CSI. Like, CSI is basically just like that. So for something like Barry Allen's personal life, like, I'm not getting into his powers yet. I'm just saying for his life as Barry Allen without the Flash persona, he does have a story there for TV that can work.
And I think one thing, too, is, that really television, and I want to say television, like, has been doing, is television has definitely been getting their budget raised a bit. And it all depends, I think, on how much they really want to put into this property. Because, if you're not going to put, it's like, why would we put a lot of money into the film where there's a bigger risk that it could flop because he's lesser known, and let's just put a little bit smaller, budget than a film into a TV show? Because, I mean, like I was saying, man, nowadays television shows are getting a lot of budget, or what they're doing is they're taking some of the budget from advertising and they're putting it into like effects or costume or stuff like that. Because, I mean, now you have shows like The Walking Dead.
Those are all practical effects, though. I mean, you've got people killing zombies, but I mean, it's all shot practically. There's really very little CGI being thrown in.
There's very little CGI, but then, like, you have another one, like Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, they have dragons and stuff. And I mean, for a television show.
But Game of Thrones is also, that's like HBO or Stars or something.
It's a premium cable show. But I mean, I'm going on, saying this. There's been others where they focus more on the effects and costume, and they put the more money into the production, than rather just the promotion of something. Like, I mean, Arrow, like you said, that's a show that really doesn't get a lot of production. You get a marketing, but I mean, for production, I mean, they're pretty good because they have pretty good scenes that are legit showing Oliver Queen on the island. I mean, some of the most of the arrows, I can't tell, but most of them I think are a lot of CG, especially some of the trick arrows that he uses. So I mean, it's not kind of speaking, it's like we don't really know what their budget might be. But I mean, I just think like if they do showcase him well, and like I said, you can't predict success or failure. You just have to kind of go out there and I mean, this already, even though people think it's not, that they're maybe like playing it safe, it is a risk. I mean, everything that
it very much is a risk because if it fails and like this is like Green Lantern. Like I'll go back to this really quick. When they showed the posters, like people when they were going into the theater, like they were like, "Oh my God, he's a white guy." I thought Green Lantern was black. Like in this perspective, this is still a risk. Being that if it fails, being that this is a hero that's still very unknown to the general public, minus the basics of his character, it could still fail. I mean, if it fails, then basically they have to go back to the drawing board and then have to basically just have to redo it.
But if it fails, they won't be losing much.
No, they won't be. I'm not talking on this like a business perspective where like if they fail, they're going to go out of market. No, they're not going to do that. They're just going to have to go back for the character.
See, I'm of two minds here. I'm thinking my argument is more based on logistics and logic, but I've got the other part of me that's like, I'm a comic book fan. I really hope it does well for itself. But then, I mean, come on, guys, we can face it here. We're comic book fans. When we see comic book movies, we follow it for a year and a half, 2 years before the movie comes out. We can usually have a pretty good idea of whether or not it's going to be successful. How well it does. I think we all pretty much knew Green Lantern was going to be a flop even before it came out. There were those of us that remained hopeful, but in your heart of hearts, you knew it was not going to do well.
I thought it was definitely, I mean, to be honest, with a movie like that, I honestly, for me, I didn't know. I wanted it to do well because, everybody had the expectations and the hope that, man, if this one succeeds, and then it would, open the doors for maybe Superman or maybe, the Justice League. If it's like, I think that they were wanting, the same thing that Iron Man got, that all of a sudden overnight success where now, I mean, in the comics and, everywhere, Iron Man is, just as popular, if not more popular than Spider-Man. And that was happening in the comics for Green Lantern around the time. I mean, in 2010 or 2009 with Brightest Day and Darkest Night, I mean,
he was getting huge. Even before that, even before that in 2007, 2008, they had the Sinestro Corps War.
Yeah, and I want to revert, not Darkest Night, it's Blackest Night, sorry.
Yeah, Blackest Night.
The Blackest Night storyline, I mean, dude, the Green Lantern Corps, Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps, his resurrection, everything, that was like the main focus for the entire DC universe. Like, everything was mapped around him. Like, he was the centerpiece when it came to, the Spectrum, anybody in the Corps. And I mean, with the film, I really didn't know. I had my doubts about the lead just because I did not like, Ryan Reynolds, and I just figured he would have been a better Flash, to be honest. But, I mean, from everything else, from the way that things were looking, the scope and the scale of it, and the talk about it being like the Star Wars, and then you had Mark Strong, who was, I mean, to me, I like even seeing villains more than I do, more than
heroes.
And Mark Strong was looking like he was just going to kill it as Sinestro. And I mean, Sinestro, to me,
he was the
like
best part of that movie by far.
Exactly, yeah. He was, I mean, I could still watch that movie just because of him, because that guy was just a brilliant, Sinestro. So, I mean, and it's kind of weird because now in the comics, the Flash is really, the centerpiece for...
Oh, yeah, dude, he really is. Like, in New 52, besides maybe Aquaman, who's gotten more of a... more of an ideal identity to him. Like, he's a badass now. Like, Aquaman used to be the butt of jokes of, the lamest hero. Now, he's a badass, but that's the same thing that's happening with Flash. Like, he's becoming a centerpiece. Like, into his... Flashpoint, that led into an entire new universe because of what he did.
Yeah, but, I mean, guys, we have to also understand the comic books and the movies and TV shows, I mean, they're completely separate entities, and we know this, and I know you guys know this.
Yeah.
And even, no matter what... Even though Green Lantern may have been kind of spearheading the DC movement in the comic books, that movie was only put out because because of Marvel's success with their films. And it wasn't even like they had faith. It didn't feel like they had faith at all in this project. It was like, they were just gonna put one out there and just see what happened. Whereas Marvel, they put all their chips in these baskets. And DC's not doing that, and that's why Green Lantern was a subpar movie, as opposed to like Iron Man. Marvel strategically mapped this whole thing out. I mean, Iron Man started early production in 2005. It wasn't released until 2008. They put all their chips in this basket, and they knew what they were doing. They put their heart and soul into it. It wasn't just like, here's the money, go make a film, I hope it does well.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're gonna get into the conversation of like talking, between Marvel and DC.
I don't want to do that. I'm just saying DC has really yet to show us, other than Man of Steel, which is the comic book community loves. Critically, it didn't do so well.
Well, critically, I thought it was very half and half.
Well, I mean, when you're talking like a Metacritic score of like 50-something and then a Rotten Tomatoes score of 50-something, I mean, it's...
Yeah, I know, critically it was very...
It wasn't received well by the critics, but the fans loved it.
Yeah, the fans loved it. That's why I'd say it's half.
And that's what's important. That Superman has become the springboard for this DC universe. I mean, it's very apparent they're moving forward. And what they should do with the Flash is they should use Superman as the springboard to launch Flash, and instead they're using this show that, forgive me guys, but it's not that well known by the general audience. I honestly don't know a single person personally, other than you guys, who watched the show Arrow. I don't know anybody who watches that show. And to say that, it's a great place to start the Flash because then people are going to get to know him, they're not. Because not many people watch that show, so you'll have a very small core group of audience members who will know this Flash show and who will know where he's coming from by the time he gets to the big screen. But you're going to have this huge other portion over here who have no idea who the fuck it is. And that's my problem. And
I guess the one thing that I guess people can just hope on is just maybe if they're asking who it is, I mean, maybe they'll just tune in. I mean, because I can say, dude, from a fan standpoint, the show, the Arrow show is good, man. It honestly, to me, it stays very true to the source. It does have a different take, but I mean, you know what? Anything comic book, something taken from a comic book always has a different, smaller
deviation.
Take.
Deviation.
But there's always, as long as staying true to the source and then keeping it, you can tell that the Green Arrow show or whatever, for its budget, for the TV station it's on, because, dude, it's on the CW.
And now I was just about to say that the CW is honestly going to hurt them.
Yeah.
Just them airing it on the CW is a point against them, because not many people watch the CW. It's just not that interesting. It's the same thing that, One Tree Hill and shit was on, and no one wants to watch that. Yeah. And so the CW has a bad rap.
Yeah, but I definitely think, like, if they really just, anything that's going to bring, something is just that's going to bring the eyes is just if the quality is good. And I mean, that's the one thing that I think
that's really the one thing that they're going for here is quality.
Yeah, and I think that's the one that's the thing that if people tune in, and fans are going to tune in, man. Fans are going to tune in because whether they like it or not, they're going to want to see, okay, let's see what they do, And if it turns out to be a success, I mean, you're going to have, that's where the potential is going to grow. Because I think, same thing with Iron Man is, I mean, as much as they did put their heart and soul into everything, there's no reason. I mean, there's no, I don't know how to say it. There's just, everything was against it. The fact that he was a lesser known character, the fact that it was, like Marvel Studios, like first live, big budget thing. But I think, even the way I've heard, some people talk about Iron Man, like the way the production was, is it was made like sort of like an independent film with a huge budget. And I mean, if the creators of the show or if the filmmakers can really keep that tight-knit and really focus on characterization and get, everything right on story, I mean, you can't deny, you can't deny success, man. I mean, if something's good, it's
good. Yeah, I'd rather take, like, I'm not using this as an argument for a basis, but I'm just saying, I'd rather take a great Flash TV show over them rushing a shitty movie.
But that's the thing, they're not rushing a shitty movie. I mean, it's not rushing a shitty movie. It seems like they're rushing a shitty TV show because they're talking about not releasing The Flash until 2016. That would be after their Justice League movie that they've proposed for 2015, right? So
Well, no, the after the Batman Superman movie.
okay, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, that's right.
Worldwide.
But that's not a rush. I mean, if you start planning it now in 2013, that's 2.5 years to get some momentum and to get your feet on the ground. But what they're doing is, and they're saying episode 8 or 9 of Arrow, they're going to introduce the Flash, and within this next week, they're going to cast the actor. I mean, that's just an ass backwards way of going about it, if you ask me.
Yeah,
And-
I mean it's
here's the thing.
definitely.
In my opinion, you're gonna have another The Cape on your hands, or that No Ordinary Family, or something like that. That's what I think is gonna happen. I'd honestly be surprised if Arrow ever got like a season 3 or 4.
Really?
Yeah,
Well, honestly, I mean, there were people last year who thought it would just go one season, and I mean, honestly, I got to see the pilot like months before it aired, and I mean, I remember being on CBM and just telling people, hey man, this is good stuff, dude. It was a pretty true origin. It seemed like a mini movie, and I mean, that's just my
Oh
preference.
yeah. It has a very climatic feel to it. Like it's a film.
I still think like that's the thing is honestly, I think it's a smart move by them to do the guest appearance first. Like I said, all about it to me just looks like they're playing it safe. Like they're doing, hey, we're gonna guest appear him. If he doesn't do that well, or if the reception isn't that well, I don't think they're even gonna go for it. If it, that they're gonna go for a solo TV show, even if it's confirmed. Because I mean, come on, man, we've been down this road where things get planned and then they get scrapped. I mean, a huge production like Spider-Man 4 was going well, way into pre-production, and all of a sudden gets scrapped, and then a week later they go reboot.
Oh yeah, because everyone left and they were getting fed up with the studio.
yeah. But the mentality to just say, hey, I mean, what you guys are basically saying is they're testing the water, and that's not that is not the mentality I think this studio should have with this character. I think it should be all or nothing with this character. And if you're talking about, like I said, a 2016 release, you've got plenty of time to put this shit together, But instead, what they're doing is, they're kind of in this arms race with Marvel, and they're like, hey, we need to get more characters out there. So what are they doing? They're taking it to the small screen, and that's not the way to do battle.
Well, I guess it's gonna be at the wait and see kind of thing, man.
Yeah, I guess you just have to kind of like both sides for what there are. Like this TV show has pros and cons to it. Like you said, you brought up great points. Like with the whole thing about like Arrow, like that's not a show. That's a show that's meant for TV because of the bows. On the same spectrum of the argument, though, it has a chance to succeed just like because they're going for quality here, which is what John said. Like if this TV show has a good basicality of what the Flash is with Barry Allen, and then somehow they can make it work because with his powers is very like when he uses the Speed Force is pretty much just teleportation because he can go anywhere he wants with the Speed Force. He's the fastest man alive.
Right.
So like I'm just saying like this show I think it could do well, but I'm not gonna say that it's gonna be a success because as you said, they're just basically going with what they see in this idea because I think it's the only thing that they know how to do so far because it's like Flash to them isn't really well known. Like they just had Green Lantern, who they basically just marketed off one animated flick, which is First Flight, I think. Did that come out after or before Green Lantern?
That came out before the live action.
Yeah. And that's like basically that was before the film even came out. That was their only type of market for it, besides the Justice League TV show, which was years ago with Jon Stewart.
I'm just saying every indication of who Barry Allen is in The Flash is garners a film adaptation in my eyes, as opposed to a television adaptation.
I think any one of the superheroes, like in both universes, they're all well deserving of a film adaptation. But I think when it comes down to it, you know what? As long as they stay true to the character and get the story right, that's the only thing that's going to make a success. And that doesn't even matter how goofy the storyline is or how serious or whatever. Because I mean, dude, with the Avengers was if you want to break it down, it did have potential to work, but there's also no reason. If it would have failed, it would have been like, yeah, dude, because you know what? They're taking all these superheroes, but with these goofy suits or whatever, and we think they're badass, but I'm talking from a general audience's point of view. like a superhero movie that's, light, colorful, and, but the thing is they got the story right and they got the characters right. And if that's the thing, is if, aside from budget, aside from costume, aside from anything, if you can get the character right, then you have a success on your hands. And I think once they do that, they can, like I said, the doors will open for something bigger, to come. And I mean, I know, people want to see stuff now, because I mean, as much as fanboys complain, they are impatient, and I think they want to see stuff now. But at the same time, I'd rather wait for a long time and get the perfect Flash.
And I completely agree. I mean, I'm right there in the same boat with you, John.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have any faith in them making a TV show out of him, and I don't even think he's the kind of character that can have an ongoing series. I mean, he has his rogues gallery with like Captain Cold and Captain Boomerang,
Professor Zoom,
yeah,
Heatwave,
Mirror Master, but I mean, like, those are also guys with these extraordinary, other than like maybe Captain Boomerang, they're these extraordinary, very flamboyant characters that need to be adapted to film, because a television series is really going to tone it down. It's really, it's going to be very minimal on what you can see what these guys can do. I mean, an Arrow show, that's fine, but Hawkeye, sure, I guess he could have his own TV show. He's basically the same guy.
Yeah.
But you guys are talking about the Flash not being known, and I kind of disagree. I think a lot of people know who the Flash is. I mean, this guy's been around, longer than most of the Marvel characters have been around.
Yeah.
And as much as I know the comic book community hates this show, kind of these subtle nuances of mentions in shows like The Big Bang Theory. I mean, that dude Sheldon's always wearing a Flash shirt. They're always talking about it. I mean, I think they know who the Flash is. People know.
It was back to what I was saying. Like, they know he's the guy in the red suit that goes really fast. Like the same way back in like 2006 or 2007, everybody knew that Iron Man was the guy in the metal suit. But I mean, that's the thing, is I think that they have the opportunity here to show you, the character, like who Barry really, really is. Why is Barry, and that's
why is Barry Allen?
But the flip side of that is, why can't they show that in a movie?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not thinking like at all that he should never get a movie. I'm definitely calling it, but I just think like it can just go one of two ways for me. Like, if the show is a success, they can either take that show and make it into a movie, or have a movie version, and continue the show, or they can take the show and be like, what, they like this Barry, let's give it to him, but with a different actor and a bigger budget and everything like that. So I mean, they really, it's sort of like, they don't have much to lose, but they have everything to gain. They're putting themselves in that that's like,
no, predicament's the right word, John.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't know. I think if you try this Flash show and it completely bombs, you've got another Green Lantern scenario. I mean, when's the next time we'll see Green Lantern on screen at all, even TV shows?
Hopefully soon. I want to say hopefully soon. I mean, I would even say, dude, like, honestly, the way that DC, has worked, especially seeing from the reboots that they've gone already with, is, it took Batman 7 or 8 years from the Batman and Robin George Clooney one until the new Batman Begins. How long was that? That was,
I want to say about 7 or 8 years, because Batman Begins is 2005, and I think Batman and Robin's like 98.
Yeah, and then it took 7 years, from Superman Returns to get to this Man of Steel reboot. So I think somewhere under 10 years, or around that 7, maybe 5 year range, because it took even 5 years for Marvel. They did the Hulk and with Eric Bana, and then they did the new one. It took about 5 or 6 years. So it's like, I think even though it's a success, it's not to say that they're just going to go ahead and scrap the ideas in general.
No,
I think it's, if it does fail, then
I think it's just basically back to the drawing board for the character, because
Yeah,
they're not.
but that's-
I don't
that's
think
the
they're in a
problem.
position to go, well, the TV show sucked, we're not going to go any further, because they've wanted a Flash film since, I said before, 2006 to at least right now, because they were planning all the way back then to have a film. They had the cast already.
But see, that's my problem. Is you talk about these kind of like 7 to 8 year lapses in bringing the same character to screen. Is right now is the time to capitalize on these characters. You know what I mean? Marvel and I'll even give it up to fucking Nolan. They've set a precedent for these kinds of films, and right now, they're in demand. And if you want to wait 7 or 8 years, you may not have that demand anymore, and then you have another flop on your hands. But right now is the time to capitalize.
Well, it's the same thing with like all the way back to 2005. That was what I don't want to say it opened the genre. I just want to say that when Batman Begins came out, that became a film that people used for inspiration. I mean,
movie makers did, but the audience actually most general audience didn't even know Batman Begins was even a movie until The Dark Knight came out. I'm not saying that
Batman Begins was a film that people saw and loved. I'm just saying that people, after it came out, was the fact that people went, you know what, this is a really good movie, and like after that, it just blew up. Like Iron Man. Then the next film that came out that was huge was Iron Man, really, in 2008, and then the genre just kept going. So it's been 2005 to 2013, so I'm just saying, like, it can go either way, really, for in demand of a character.
I know, but what I'm saying is right now there is a demand. You can't be certain that 7 years from now there'll still be a demand for them. But in 3 years, in 2016, right after the Avengers and Batman and Superman movie come out, and Ant-Man, and, you can bet your bottom dollar that demand will still be in place. But 7-10 years from now, you don't know. And what I'm saying with Batman Begins is that people who wanted to make these films, these superhero films, they looked to Batman Begins, but the general audience really had no knowledge of I mean, I didn't even know about Batman Begins until it hit DVD, and that's when I first saw it. And then when The Dark Knight came out, people were like, oh, there was a first one, so then it became really highly rented. You don't want to take those steps back. So The Flash, I feel like you've got this very small window of opportunity to bring the Flash out and do him right. And if you miss your mark, we may never see a good Flash.
No, we won't. But on the other side, like, people say, well, why can't he get a film? Because you can showcase him properly. I don't want to say properly because we don't even know what the budget's going to be like. But like, it's the same thing as saying, like, well, why can't he do well in TV? I'm not saying that as a basis because they can't do his powers right, because in a movie it will outlast his powers in a TV show tremendously. I'm not saying that right now. I'm just saying on a weekly basis of going back to his story, then you just have some window of opportunity to give more character to Barry Allen for later down the road.
But TV shows also, they lose audience interest. You know what I mean? Unless it's an episodic show, kind of like How I Met Your Mother or Friends or Frasier, those kinds of sitcoms, people lose interest in a story that hinges upon seeing the next episode every single time. They just get tired of it. I mean, that's why so many of those types of shows get canceled after 3, 4, maybe even 5 seasons. Heroes went down the drain after probably season 3. You know what I mean? And the studio realized, there's no more demand for this. People lost interest. They're not following it. Ratings aren't what we thought they'd be. It's time to pull the plug. And if you do that to Flash, I mean, it's just going to put a bad taste in everybody's mouth.
I think it's just the chance that they're going for, man.
I don't see it. I don't see it as a chance. I see it as playing it safe. It's they're driving. What they're doing is they're driving a big wheel with a seatbelt on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's.
I think you're right when you say that they're basically going for safety, but at the same time, it's a risk in of its own, because if it like I said, if it fails, then basically, like, there's not going to be as much of a demand for people to see Flash. It's going to be like Green Lantern, where people basically, they aren't tired of it, but like they know what to expect now, in their minds at least.
And I think something, I think it's it's just, they're just playing it safe, man. I mean, and I would love to see them, put out a Flash movie, but I mean, it all depends on the quality of that, the quality of what we're gonna get. Because I mean, I'll say it a billion times, I'd rather have a great Flash movie, or I mean a great Flash TV show, than a bad movie. And I mean, I know even though it is TV, I mean, TV's actually gone gone a little bit better, now. I mean, people didn't really used to watch TV unless it was something like you said, like Friends or like How I Met Your Mother or something like that. And like now you've got comic book inspired television, or you've got adaptations from television, whether they be on HBO, whether they be on,
CW.
AMC. I mean, it's the risk. It's the risk you got to take. And I mean, as small as it is a risk, it's a risk,
Nonetheless, but it's a safe risk almost. Like, I know that sounds dumb, but on the character of itself as Flash, it's a risk in of its own that you're doing with them.
I mean, I wish this show all the best. I hope it does well. But all I'm saying is if they don't get it right, then they've really, like I said, shot themselves in the foot. If it's going to be successful, they really need to go balls to the wall. All their chips need to be in this one, because if you're kind of sidestepping it, it's not going to do well.
Yeah, that's the only thing is, like, now they do have to understand that since they're going on a smaller medium, like, now they do have that, I want to say not freedom, but just, it's like, all right, man, we've already put ourselves to just put him on TV instead of a big movie. Let's give it all we got, because you know what? If we're playing it safe, and we know we're playing it safe, then let's go ahead and give it all we got. And I think the same was done for Arrow, because, yeah, dude, not a lot of people really expected this to go past
season
the pilot.
1. Yeah.
Not even people didn't even think it would go past the pilot, and
right.
I mean, by the 6th or 7th episode, it already got renewed for a second season.
Yep.
And I mean, that's the thing is, like, it's all about change. So like I said, with the whole thing of them not, no one really said in the show that metahumans don't exist. Just the creators of the show had said that. But
it just feels like they're reneging on the entire basis of the show, though, and that's something that bothers me. But I mean, I'll get past it. I'm just saying, when you do something like that, it really just, it seems lackadaisical in writing, and it to me it brings down the quality.
Yeah, but like really, like I said, like who knows? Like basically before, like even before he became the Flash, as I mentioned before, Barry Allen was just a dude that was basically, he's kind of like Batman. Like, he lost his mother because his father was accused of killing her.
Right.
Then he became a forensics investigator to basically try to see what happened, because the murder was never solved. So, like, if they show that in Arrow, because that, they don't have to show his metahuman style, then I think that can work in a certain medium, and then his origin can be displayed for later with his actual powers.
Then I just really hope that they sever ties between the TV show and the movie. Like, I don't think they should have the same actor. What
do you think about the Shield show? Are you positive or negative on that one?
The Shield show, I think, is a completely different monster, because it's not focusing on the superheroes. It's really focusing on the human element. It's focusing on basically everything else in that universe other than the superheroes. I mean, all the movies we've seen are based on the superheroes. So everything, all the worlds that surround those heroes are, completely surround those characters. They're very character centric. The Shield show offers the opportunity to see what it's like in that world without the superheroes being present. And you know what? The thing is that Marvel has just lucked out and done it right, and who's to say they can't bring in Robert Downey Jr. just to take a day of his time, giving him an appearance, or Mark Ruffalo, or Chris Hemsworth. I mean, they could just have small appearances, and that show is going to go through the roof because of that. But you've got Joss Whedon on there, who, I mean, is renowned for doing great TV shows and writing great TV shows. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I definitely want to check it out, but I'm also not going to be like, this is going to be one of those shows that goes on for 10 seasons. I don't see that happening. But it'll be a great way to kind of explore the rest of the world that these superheroes live in without them being present.
Gotcha. Now, would you feel comfortable if in some of the films that are to come from the Marvel Cinematic Universe that they reference this TV show?
Oh yeah, and I would even welcome appearances from the actors that are in S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, you can have them on the carrier deck. You could have them, right there next to Fury. I mean, I don't expect they would have huge roles, but it would be really cool to see them cross over into the film and make appearances or have small supporting roles. It would just strengthen the bond between TV series and movie, but that's because the movies came first.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have worked vice versa, which is what it seems like WB is trying to do.
DC's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, minus really, I would say Man of Steel, which is their only grounds for this. It's not like they're diving headfirst and putting everything on their shoulders with this Flash TV show, because in the background, we all have to remember basically that they're having their Avengers type movie with Superman and Batman. Now, on scaling wise, that's a totally different argument, but still, they're going for something beside, on scale of what the Avengers was to the studio, Warner Brothers.
I think having like 6 heroes team up as opposed to like the 2 biggest ones ever known.
I'm not saying again. I'm not saying this on scaling. It's like Avengers.
It's definitely in the same ballpark for sure.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I honestly, there's just so little that I know about what's happening with that I just don't feel like I can comment yet.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying is basically like in the background, we do have something that's not basically that they're putting all their hopes and dreams on this TV show. This is basically just really, I think, is either A, they want to, I don't want to say competition with Marvel. I want to say that A is basically they want to bring in Flash, or B, they just really want other heroes to be introduced in the medium that works for them so far.
I think it's a little bit of both. But I don't think that TV works for the Flash, and that's where I think they're going wrong. But I hope I'm proven wrong, because I've never ever wanted any comic book movie to do poorly. I mean, that's about all I have to say. I think that's a good discussion. If you guys have anything else you want to put in, if you want to say, now's the time.
Watch the episode just in case. Just watch the episode.
I'd say tune into episode 8 of Arrow.
I mean, honestly, it's an hour of your time. What's most of it, and that's the thing, is kind of like the same thing as like, what do you got to lose? If you end up liking it, and you're like, oh, I'll tune in next week.
Yeah.
And we got a fan, so that's all I'll say.
Yeah, all I'll say is just watch episode 8 of Arrow, because, that's when it's going to showboat off into the TV series. That's even if it, they want to go through with it. Because it's the studio, of course, that's canceled their Justice League film while it was in, they had sets, they had cast, they had costumes. So I'm still not totally sure that this idea is going to take off if the idea behind it and the episode sucks. Because this studio is known to cancel shit.
Well,
so that's why I say I'm not all chips on the table. I'm just saying, it can work, but it can also fail. Yeah.
Well, there you have it, folks. Thanks for tuning in and listening and hearing what we have to say with absolutely no knowledge on it, really. That's just our initial thoughts. I hope you guys liked it. Tune in next time for when we talk about God knows what. It'll be something similar, but
yeah, hopefully.
Thanks for listening, guys.